Hari Hari. So we are on verse 7 and 8. We will do two verses today of chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. Verse 7. Duryodhan speaking to Dronacharya. He says, "But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, my military force." Duryodhana says, "O best of the Brahmanas," deliberately. Then he goes on. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta, called Bhurishava, who are always victorious in battle. Duryodhana is deliberately picking on Dronacharya. He is deliberately he is deliberately manipulating Dronacharya. Because in his mind, Duryodhana's mind, Dronacharya is his army's biggest, greatest weakness. Certainly one of the greatest strengths, absolutely, without doubt, Dronacharya is one of the greatest strengths of his army. But he is singularly one of the greatest weaknesses in Duryodhana's mind. We heard about this and explored this in Satsang 6, verse 6 of this chapter, when we recognized and heard Duryodhana listing the names of the children on the battlefield. They weren't children, they were young men from the ages of 16 to mid-20s. But for Dronacharya, they were the age of what would be his grandchildren. So Duryodhana, he's seeing all of these and he recognizes Dronacharya's weaknesses, perceived weaknesses. Not perceived, they are his weaknesses. And this is why Dronacharya is, I keep mixing the two names. This is why Duryodhana is addressing so much and is concerned so much with what Dronacharya is going through. And he's addressing all of this to Dronacharya. Duryodhana has no ability to pull the wool over the eyes of Bhishma. He doesn't even try. Bhishma is not taken in by Dronacharya, by Duryodhana. Dronacharya is susceptible to Duryodhana because of his various attachments. Duryodhana uses the phrase, "O best of the Brahmanas." He highlights the fact that Dronacharya is a Brahmana. And then he says, "O best of the Brahmanas, all of these people here, these captains, are highly qualified to lead my military force, my soldiers, Mama Sainyeshwar, my soldiers." He is highlighting the fact that Dronacharya is a Brahmana. This is a war, and Duryodhana, is saying, I have dozens of qualified kshatriyas who can lead this battle. So if you don't think you can do this, now is the time to say. This is what Duryodhana is implying. O best of the Brahmanas, you are a Brahmana. I have Bhishma. I have Karna. Kripa, Ashvatthama, Vikarna. Kripa is a Brahmana. Ashvatthama, Vikarna, the Sona Samadhataka Bhurishrava. He mentions all of these others. Kripacharya, very important mention. Kripacharya was a Brahmana and was Dronacharya's brother-in-law. He's making this comparison. You're a Brahmana, Kripacharya is a Brahmana. I'm not concerned about Kripacharya. Kripacharya is also qualified to lead my military force. Are you? Again, he's sticking it to Dronacharya. Is your brother-in-law, are you better than your brother-in-law? Your brother-in-law is capable of leading this military force. Are you? Are you capable of doing this? Ashvatthama, the son of Dronacharya. Duryodhana is saying, your son is extraordinarily capable of leading this army. Your own son, are you? Can you fight without leniency? Can you set aside your compassion? Can you set aside your grandfatherly love you have for the Pandavas? Because there's another Brahmana over here who can do it. Your own son can do it. Even my brother Vikarna. Vikarna is an interesting character. Those of you who know the story, I will share just this little tidbit. Earlier on, when the Kauravas tried to disrobe Draupadi in public, it was only Vikarna, who was a brother of Duryodhana. There's 100 brothers, Duryodhana and 99 others. Of all the brothers, of all the other 99 brothers, only one stood up and said, you should not do this. This is absolutely criminal behavior. It was Vikarna. Duryodhana mentions Vikarna for two reasons. One, Vikarna is there, he's present. He's mentioning Vikarna to let Vikarna know that he expects Vikarna to be loyal to him and not also side with the Pandavas at this critical time. He's trying to massage Vikarna's ego. But he's also, by implication, comparing Dronacharya to Vikarna. Duryodhana is saying, my brother Vikarna, who spoke against me and what I was doing in the court during the disrobing of Draupadi, even this brother who I distrust, even he is more capable, or he is willing and capable to lead my military force fully and completely. Are you? The absolute despicable nature and quality of Duryodhana to talk to his spiritual master, to talk to his guru like this, is absolutely, it's disgusting to hear. These are, of all the verses in Bhagavad Gita, these verses, to me, are the most disgusting, I don't want to use, that's a strong word, but the most reprehensible, because it's not the Bhagavad Gita, it's hearing Duryodhana's message, hearing Duryodhana's conversation, or monologue, if you will, how he's speaking to his guru is absolutely, it's, but having said that, it is absolutely essential that we understand and know what is happening here. What Duryodhana is saying, why he's saying it, and on the flip side, not so much to give so much attention to Duryodhana and what he's saying. That's easy to understand and to know. We are surrounded in this world by persons who are Duryodhans. Even ourselves may at times may act to some extent as small little Duryodhans as we try to manipulate our way through this existence. Excuse me. But what is of most important is that we understand why Dronacharya is susceptible to morons like Duryodhana. We will encounter Duryodhans all throughout our life. As I say, you cannot swing the proverbial dead cat without hitting a Duryodhana in this day and age. We are going to be confronted by Duryodhans all throughout, in every area of our life, at every stage of our life, at every juncture of our life, in every role we play in our life. The question is to make sure that we are not susceptible to them, that we do not have the unfortunate weakness that Dronacharya had, and then become susceptible to the Duryodhans around us. Because, and this is not to diminish Dronacharya. In fact, Dronacharya's passing, his death, is actually in many ways glorious. Dronacharya is a remarkable personality. But at the same time, the lessons we can take is from understanding the weaknesses he had. Dronacharya was very, very attached, and there was these attachments, very, very attached to position and prestige that he had acquired. By becoming the guru of the Kauravas, first of all, Dronacharya was a disciple of Parashuram. And Parashuram did not have very many disciples. I think he had maybe 5 disciples. Parashuram is an incarnation of Vishnu. And he is the warrior incarnation. When Vishnu specifically came as a warrior to decimate and destroy the corrupt Kshatriyas. And he did so 20 some times. It was 21 times. Destroyed all Kshatriyas 21 times. Corrupt, evil Kshatriyas. No matter how strong they were, or how powerful they were, destroyed them all. So then to become the disciple of Parashuram, who is the warrior, the greatest warrior of all time, is obviously going to be Parashuram. To become the disciple of Parashuram, to get this military martial knowledge, there is Parashuram is the Bruce Lee. No comparison, of course, but just to give some context here, right? The Bruce Lee, the Muhammad Ali, or whatever you want to call it. That is a person that you want to go to learn the military art. And he only would teach Brahmanas. Parashuram would not teach Kshatriyas the military sciences. He would not teach them. He thought that Kshatriyas were too capricious, whimsical, and unable to control their senses to handle the knowledge of the military sciences. That they would just use it to just destroy the world. So he would not teach Kshatriyas. He would only teach Brahmanas, hoping that Brahmins would have the maturity, the spiritual maturity. The definition of a Brahmana is one who has realized Brahman. That's the very definition of what it means to be a Brahmana. One who has realized Brahman, the Supreme. So Parashuram wanted to entrust the military sciences to those persons who are spiritually realized and thus who know how to use and not use, when and when not to use, how and how not to apply the military sciences. He did not want to entrust these. It's like giving a nuclear bomb, right? So he would only teach Brahmanas. Bhishma was the singular exception. Bhishma was the only Kshatriya who was a disciple of Parashuram. Karna was a disciple of Parashuram, and Dronacharya was a disciple of Parashuram. I believe there were two others, but I'm not sure on that, so I won't quote them. I won't mention those names because I could not find the clear and scriptural references that these two individuals were disciples of Parashuram. It was more a commentary of someone who thought. Irrelevant. Duryodhan knows this. I mean, everybody knows this. Bhishma, Dronacharya, Karna, these are the three disciples of Parashuram. So Duryodhan uses that as well. O best of the Brahmanas, you, Bhishma, Karna, by implication, he's saying, you three disciples of Parashuram. And he's making a comparison. Are you as good as your other god brothers, your other fellow co-disciples of Parashuram? Or are those disciples of Parashuram going to be known as better than you because they are able to lead my military force? Bhishma is the most famous of Parashuram's disciples. And he's a Kshatriya. How do you stand up to Bhishma? Everyone knows Parashuram doesn't train Kshatriyas. How do you match up with your Guru Bhai, your god brother, Bhishma? He's a Kshatriya, a disciple of Parashuram. Is he going to prove himself to be better than you because you are favoring the Pandavas? Duryodhana is manipulating Dronacharya because Dronacharya is susceptible to manipulation. Dronacharya has always been, unfortunately, attached to and driven by position and prestige. In the episode between him and Drupada, when he came to Drupada, and Drupada said, how can a Brahman and a king be equals? You're poor, I'm rich. Drupada was wrong. No one has arguing that. But in this situation, it is Dronacharya who, yes, should correct Drupada, but in the manner in which he chooses to correct Drupada shows the weakness within Dronacharya. He attacks Drupada and usurps half of Buddha's kingdom. Why? What is the lesson for Drupada to learn in having half his kingdom usurped? The punishment does not fit the crime by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, there's an offense. Absolutely, there must be correction. But Dronacharya is susceptible to feeling greatly humiliated and having to exact his pound of flesh. his 2 or 3 pounds of flesh, usurps half of Drupada's kingdom. He is now the teacher of the Kauravas. And his disciples, Dronacharya's disciples, they go, not even Dronacharya himself. Dronacharya sends the graduates of his Gurukula to go and capture Drupada. So the Pandavas, for Guru Dakshin, they go, they declare war on Drupada, defeat Drupada, and capture him, bring him prisoner to Dronacharya. So Dronacharya becomes world renowned all throughout Bharat. All the kings are trying to send their kids to Dronacharya for training in the martial sciences. Dronacharya's prestige, Dronacharya is now the West Point or the Sandhurst if you're UK, right? Be that as it may. Was it Herefordshire? Sandhurst? I believe the military academy for the UK. I think it's Sandhurst. Not sure. Whatever it may be. The creme de la creme of military academies, right? West Point, Norfolk Naval Academy, whatever it may be. This is what Dronacharya now has. Everyone wants to send their kids to his Gurukula for martial sciences. Drupada, his sworn enemy is Dronacharya. He specifically asks and gets blessed with a son who will kill Dronacharya. And what does Drupada do? He sends his own son to Dronacharya's Gurukula, to Dronacharya's West Point Academy. That's how prestigious Dronacharya's Gurukula had become, how sought after. Everyone sent there and wanted to send their kids to Dronacharya's. So Dronacharya had position and prestige to which he was extremely attached. And therefore, no matter what Duryodhana did, Dronacharya sat in silence. Dronacharya rarely said anything in opposition to Duryodhana until Bhishma said something first. Dronacharya rarely, from what I recall, Dronacharya rarely, if ever, was the first to give opposition. It was always Bhishma and Vidura. Then Dronacharya would say something because of his attachment to the prestige, the power, and the position he had gained through the Kaurava dynasty. But he also, so the same weakness, that his attachment to the prestige and the power and the acclaim that he had achieved from the Kaurava dynasty, also made him susceptible to the weakness of the affections of the Pandavas. The Pandavas adored Dronacharya. Arjuna adored Dronacharya. And the relationship was mutual. It was very difficult for, how can you not like it? The Pandavas were goody two-shoes. Well, Bhima wasn't a goody two-shoe, but at the same time, the Pandavas were adored. And the Pandavas adored Dronacharya. Arjuna adored Dronacharya, and Dronacharya adored Arjuna. To such an extent that Dronacharya says, no one will be a better, I promise you that no one will be, if I have any power over it, no one will ever be a better archer than you, my dear Arjuna. And then we get the story of Ekalavya. We won't go into that story now, that's not the point. But Duryodhana knows Dronacharya's weakness. He knows that Dronacharya is more susceptible than anyone else in his army to being compromised because of his various attachments. And this is why Duryodhana is sticking it to Dronacharya, trying to make sure that Dronacharya does not go easy, does not hold back in his commitment to destroy the Pandavas. Duryodhana mentions Karna. He even lists Dronacharya in the same sentence as Karna. Bhishma does not like Karna. Dronacharya has no respect for Karna. These two particularly have no respect for Karna. Bhishma is a disciple of Parashuram. Dronacharya is a disciple of Parashuram. They both became disciples of Parashuram in the proper manner. Karna had to lie. And because he had lied, he had gained access to Parashuram's knowledge. Parashuram cursed him. We won't go down that long story. But because of that, Dronacharya did not have real respect for Karna. But Bhishma was inimical from the very beginning of Karna's arrival in Hastinapur. Bhishma was inimical and constantly and repeatedly demeaned and derided Karna. So there was a fierce conflict between Karna and Bhishma, to such extent that Karna would not even fight in the battle of Kurukshetra until Bhishma had fallen. I often remark about this. People talk about this wonderful friendship between Duryodhana and Karna. Karna could not even fight for his so-called best friend Duryodhana because he did not want to fight under the leadership of Bhishma. Bhishma was the commander-in-chief for the first 10 days. Karna was so arrogant, so self-involved, so attached, another attachment, so attached to the validation he needed as a warrior that he would not even, for his so-called best friend Duryodhana, fight under the leadership of Bhishma because he needed this validation that he was the great warrior, the greatest warrior of all time. So his idea was that when Bhishma fails, because Karna was 100% sure that Bhishma could not defeat the Pandavas. 100% sure. Otherwise, he would have gone into the battle. If Karna thought that Bhishma would succeed in defeating the Pandavas, Karna would absolutely join the battle just to be part of defeating and fighting Arjuna and defeating the Pandavas. Karna was 100% sure that Bhishma would fail, and that once Bhishma had failed, then he would arrive on the scene and save the day. That's what Karna wanted. He wanted that more than he wanted to empower, or rather affirm, his friendship with Duryodhana, his so-called best friend, Duryodhana. His best friendship with Duryodhana, he kicked to the side. The most important thing with Karna was his attachment to being known as the greatest fighter on the planet, and he could not do that as long as Bhishma was on the battlefield. So the point of all of this, the lessons we're trying to get through here, is attachment. Dronacharya being attached to the prestige that he had gained under the Kaurava banner and his Gurukula, his attachment to being favored by the Pandavas and having the love of the Pandavas and being loved by the Pandavas and his affection for the Pandavas, all of this attachment, all of this turmoil that Dronacharya is dealing with has him completely compromised, and Duryodhana is trying to offset that, trying to get Dronacharya to be immune to all of that. He has no trust in Dronacharya, so he is behaving, well, he's behaving the way he always behaves. And this is the situation we find these characters in. The issue is one of attachment. And it's not about pride, prestige, position. It's not about those things. Very, very important, we must understand. It's about, and this is where we come to the issue, it's about why. Why? Why must we engage? Why is position important? Why is prestige important? Why is validation of my ability to be a great warrior? Why is that important? And if the reason of the why is temporary, there is your problem. That's an attachment. The why has to reflect your maturity, our spiritual maturity, because it must rest on the eternal. When our whys rest in the eternal, that is called Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan means eternal. You have Dharma and Sanatan Dharma. Dharma is Kshatriya Dharma, Stri Dharma, Varnashram Dharma, Pati Dharma, this Dharma, that Dharma, Yuga Dharma, Dharma. That's all classified technically as Naimitika. It's temporary. It's short term. Important. I'm not saying, not that it's not important. It is highly important, significantly important, essential, but it is temporary. Then you have Sanatan Dharma, that which is eternal. So over here you have position, prestige. No, you have position, you have prestige, you have all these issues, these objects, right? And if they are firmly rooted in what is temporary, that's when you have the Duryodhana, the Dronacharya, there's this whole mess over here. But those same objects of prestige, position, this, wealth, all these different things, if they are based on the eternal, Sanatan Dharma, everything has changed. Then you have detachment. There was saying by, I believe it was either Truman or Eisenhower. I believe it was Truman, who said, you can achieve anything if you don't care who gets the credit. Or something, you can achieve anything in the world if you can give the credit to someone else, or something to that effect. In other words, someone else gets the credit. You can achieve anything. This is the why. If we want to claim credit, that is ahankar, I do. We claim credit. So what happens? You have the Duryodhana and the Karna and all this mess over here, because everyone's trying to claim credit. They're trying to claim their prestige. They're trying to claim their validation. They're trying to claim their position, and it all goes to hell. But if you give credit to the Supreme, that's where Krishna says, Arjuna, you be but an instrument If you're an instrument, I claim the credit. The Supreme gets the credit. You can achieve anything. Anything. But that is the Sanatan. That is the Supreme. That is the spiritual realization that is essential. That is how anything can be achieved. If we want the credit, we make a mess. If we give credit to the Supreme, anything is possible. That is detachment. It is detachment from the credit. Ownership of the credit of what is happening. So we'll end there and continue in our next satsang. Hari Hari.